So I feel like all I'm seeing nowadays are sequel movies, especially when it comes to the MCU. But one thing I do have to plug the studio on is making hits out of pretty much unknown properties, but where their problems kind of lie is following those hits up. We've seen this with Iron Man 2, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and now kind of with this one. I mean, it's not a terrible film, but it's not great. It's not what we come to expect out of Marvel, especially after seeing a movie like Infinity War. There are a couple of issues that I had with this movie, but despite those, I still had fun with it. What I liked about this movie was its condensed story. It takes place over a few days, and the pacing, in my opinion, was done really well. There wasn't a point in the movie where I felt it kind of dragged the story to a halt, and the action sequences are my favorite part about this movie. I love when superhero movies are able to sort of highlight the hero's abilities in fun and creative ways, and this movie does it really well for Ant-Man and the Wasp's abilities, and it was just so entertaining to watch. Paul Rudd again is fantastic as Scott Lang in this film, and I'm thinking that he is able to let his humor come out a little bit more in the character in this one. If you're familiar with any of Paul Rudd's movies or his work, he has a very distinct brand of humor, and I feel like he was less handcuffed in this movie. He was able to bring that to the character a bit more. And I will say that I loved the dynamic between Scott Lang and his daughter. It's one of the things he was fighting so hard to keep in the first film, and I'm really glad they were able to bring that over into the sequel. The visual effects are pretty impressive as well, especially with the de-aging effect. They used it in the last movie and do it again here, and it's really impressive what they're able to pull off. It just shows how far we've come since Tron Legacy. It's such a really convincing effect, and it's done really well. And I said in my review for the first movie, I love that they kept the effect of them shrinking down and blowing back up again really simple. I feel like had they gone with something a little bit more complicated, they wouldn't be able to pull off some of the action pieces that they have in the movie. And the facing effects with the villain Ghost, I felt was really cool. It looked like they were sort of telegraphing her movements, almost as if they're showing like an alternate version of her. I just found that effect to be really cool. But like I said at the beginning of this video, I had a few problems with this movie, and it feels like it's a little bit like face value with this film. I mean, it's entertaining with the action sequences and the humor, but the deeper you dive into this movie, the less you're gonna get out of it. And one of the weaknesses is its villain. I mean, it's kind of a shame that this villain is a little underwhelming, because the last two Marvel films with Infinity War and Black Panther, Marvel really knocked it out of the park in this one, and this one was just a bit of a disappointment. And also there's this criminal group that our heroes have to deal with in this movie, and they're just basically there for cannon fodder, just for have someone for our heroes to knock around and not have to care about. And also there's a couple of scenes in this film that they have no real effect on the overall narrative. I feel like they could just taken these scenes out and the movie's no different, especially this one scene where Scott and Hope have to sneak into his daughter's elementary school, and it felt completely unnecessary to me. You could have just taken this scene out and the movie's no different. But I think my biggest flaw of this movie is that it felt very inconsequential to me. I mean, I like that the story is its own little thing, and it happens to this own little corner of the world, and the threat isn't worldwide. I feel like that's what these Marvel standalone films should do, and the villain shouldn't threaten existence throughout the entire world. I feel like that's what the Avengers film should do when all the heroes gather together to fight a bigger threat. But this movie just didn't feel like it had any stakes involved, and it felt like it didn't have any haymakers story-wise, because when you compare it to the last standalone film with Black Panther, the villain's consequences did have the possibility of becoming a global threat, and the heroes had smaller personal character moments, and I felt like this movie was kind of missing those elements. So despite its shortcomings, I still had fun on this one. I will say that it is definitely a lighter film than Avengers Infinity War. The action and the humor kept me entertained for the most part, and thankfully the pacing is done well enough so things don't get stale. So I'm giving Ant-Man and the Wasp 3 out of 5 stars. So now it's your turn. If you saw Ant-Man and the Wasp, let me know what you thought of it in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to like and share it, and stay up to date on all the videos going up on this channel. Give that subscribe button a click. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll see you in the next review.